What's up, everybody? How's everyone doing? So yeah, my name is David. I want to talk about data, how it wants to be free, how we can disintermediate Web3 and the data around it. So before I started, I'm going to say kind of who I am. I'm a developer. I've worked on a just bunch of different kind of crypto blockchain projects over the past year. Also helped organize LizCon, which was a big conference we did in Lisbon back in the fall. That's me as a lizard at the Lizard Conference. And yeah, so this this talk is related to kind of one of the main projects I'm working on now, which is CryptoStats, kind of project for open data metrics. But before I talk about CryptoStats, I wanted to kind of like zoom out a bit and talk about, what's the goal of blockchains in general? What makes blockchains really valuable? And, I think if you ask a lot of people here, a lot of people in crypto in general, they'd say decentralization, which it's not wrong, but I see decentralization as it's an attribute of blockchains, but it's not really the goal. Like decentralization gives us other things, and one of the most powerful things decentralization gives us is disintermediation. The ability to remove kind of a central party from something. I think I have a definition. Yeah, removing control from privileged entities. And yeah, just to kind of give some examples, I wanted to go through the benefits of decentralization, of disintermediation, and how it's already applied to kind of what we've done so far in crypto. When we disintermediate protocols or things, we get neutrality. You get predictability, which is really important for if you're going to build a business on top of a protocol. You remove counterparty risk. Having to trust someone with your money or whatever. So yeah, let's go through kind of like how crypto's already disintermediated, removed trusted intermediaries. And by the way, I picked the graphics from Cointelegraph because they have like the coolest graphics. So here's a sexy Bitcoin getting painted. Bitcoin, the original blockchain application, it's so powerful because it disintermediates kind of the power of the state to create money, disintermediates from technology companies. We kind of almost had the potential for like Facebook to make money, and Bitcoin removes the need for us to trust them. Bitcoin's always compared to gold, but even gold, you need to if you want to move physical gold, you need to hire companies and take them across customs, controls. So Bitcoin removes the need to do any disintermediation in terms of value transfers, and that was the original really powerful idea of blockchains. Then we had Ethereum come. Here's Ethereum talking about himself on a television show. Ethereum disintermediated the need to kind of trust third-party entities to kind of run code for you, to have this unstoppable code that you could create agreements between two parties and not need a trusted third party to arbitrate those decisions. It gives you property rights, as I say. This is, if we think of blockchains as, kind of nations, these digital nations, property rights are super important for a nation. Nations that have strong property rights have strong economies. You can invest in a country with strong property rights. So, a really trustless, decentralized blockchain lets us have those properties, which lets us build these amazing economies. And then we can start building applications on top. So, I think kind of the most simple but most powerful example of something built on a blockchain would be a decentralized exchange, such as Uniswap. So Uniswap, I think we kind of forget how game-changing Uniswap was, because now DEXs are everywhere. But if you go back to 2017, if you wanted to make a token and you wanted to buy and sell that token from people, you had to go to Binance. You had to go to one of these centralized exchanges, and they would charge $50,000 just to list your coin on their exchange. So with Uniswap, all of a sudden, anybody can sell their token. Anybody can make a liquid market to buy and sell. No government or company or whatever can stop you from, buying and selling tokens. So now we're kind of disintermediating, removing some of the need for the Binances and the Coinbases of the world. And then, for ENS, I don't know why there's, I'm blanking on this guy's name, Mark Cuban in front of a swear ENS name. But, I wanted to kind of put an example of, kind of where we're getting to now on how blockchains are disintermediating the world. And one way they're doing that is NFTs. And I think ENS is a great example of an NFT that's, already has more, a lot of utility, a lot of power, and also has a parallel in the existing world. What is ENS? ENS is a domain name. Everybody understands the value of domain names, but it's a domain name that's not controlled by one organization, because the DNS system is still kind of controlled by the U.S. government at some level. So with ENS, with kind of NFTs like this, we're removing the need for parties to issue and control digital assets, and letting people create this digital real estate. So, again, I can kind of see what we're doing in blockchain as building up this stack of, adding layers and disintermediating more parties, giving control, taking control from centralized parties and giving it to either the community at large or to decentralized protocols. And the thing that is really interesting to me is what comes next. What's we've disintermediated a bunch of sectors already. What can we disintermediate now? So this brings me over to kind of the stuff I've been working on for a bit, which all started with this website called Crypto Fees. Oh, I guess it was Crypto Fee Stats. You guys know this site? This is the original version. It looks a little bit different now. It's still pretty similar, but I originally made this the ugly version of this back in 2020 in the middle of DeFi summer, when all of a sudden I noticed that Uniswap fees were becoming competitive with even Bitcoin. And I was like, wow, that's really interesting. That's an underappreciated metric. So I made this site. I'm still kind of running it. It's become popular as one of the most popular places to look at fee revenue. But running the site, I kind of again, I made this site as just a side project, but I was running it. It was getting popular, and I started to kind of understand some challenges for running a site like this. So first of all, every DeFi protocol was reaching out, wanted to be listed. They wanted me to get their data, and so there was a lot of work for me to kind of work with every DeFi protocol to get accurate data for them on our website. There was disagreements about the data. I've gotten in some Twitter wars with people sometimes because they go, "Oh, you're undercounting our data, and you're only doing it because you want our token to go down," or something like that. And finally, people started reaching out. Companies, big companies, small, hackers, whatever. They're like, "Hey, you have really cool data. We want to put it on our website. We want to make news stories with it. How do we access this data?" And so I felt all this power was kind of running through me to run this site, and I kind of didn't really want that. I just wanted this site to be a public good that the community could look at and get access to good data. So I was becoming a trusted intermediary. So the problem I wanted to solve was how do I remove myself from that position? What are the ways to kind of be a data product like this? I didn't want to. There were a few approaches I didn't want to take with the site. Here's a screenshot from Nansen, which I don't want to be knocking on Nansen. It's an awesome site, but who can pay $30,000 for a data website? This is seems to me like a Web 2 data model, which is we're going to take data, which data, again, you can share data for free. That doesn't cost you anything to give somebody data. But build a wall around it and say, if you want to get past that wall, you need to pay a bit of money to do it. So I didn't really want to take that approach because, the reason crypto fees got so popular in the first place was user contributions, being an open source project. The other way that can be popular to kind of monetize something with data is to kind of make it a part of a bigger organization. So this is CoinMarketCap, a screenshot from CoinMarketCap, which still is like one of the most popular crypto data websites. And a couple years ago, they got acquired by Binance. And shortly after they got acquired by Binance, BNB became the top DeFi token on their DeFi token list. And I don't think BNB is a DeFi token on the same scale as Chainlink and Maker and Compound, especially not at that time. I don't even know if Binance Smart Chain had even launched at that time. So it seemed like there may be, whether this was intentional or not, like you can see that there's a financial interest in Binance using a data kind of property that they have to promote their own projects. So kind of being sponsored, being controlled by a larger profitable company didn't seem like the right approach. But I think we're seeing like this new approach, a new category of projects that are trying to take like this other direction on how you can make data available. And one of, I think, the best aligned projects is a site that I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen, DeFi Llama. So DeFi Llama is this awesome website. It's probably the most popular website today for tracking total value locked, which is one of the most popular data metrics. And they've taken the approach of saying it's going to be totally open source. It's going to be neutral. This data is a public good. This is something that people who are, in crypto, in DeFi, in Web3, like they need access to this data, and we want to find a way to make that available. I included this really good screenshot of 0xNGMI, the guy behind DeFi Llama. What was he saying here? People are going, oh, like why are you adding Cardano to DeFi Llama? And he's like, we'll add anything. Like it's not a data site to go what project is good and bad. That's the individual's kind of decision to interpret data however they wish. So what I'm hoping to do is I've created this project called CryptoStats where I think we want to take this idea of kind of open source community run data and take it to the next level. So what we do with CryptoStats, this is kind of where I see us in this pipeline of how data goes from being data on a blockchain. Data all starts like on a blockchain itself. You've got the blockchains themselves. You've got DeFi applications. Basically, you've got a bunch of transactions, events, calls, like raw data. Next step is you need something to index it. You need nodes, powerful computers, databases that are going to comb through all this data, organize it into some schema. So the biggest one by far is the graph. We're huge fans and users of the graph protocol. There are some things the graph still can't quite do yet. We still pull data from things like Coinmetrics, which is like a more centralized company that provides data. We pull some data from Xerion, things like that. But this is, I think, one layer, which is the kind of the infrastructure layer of aggregating blockchain data and turning it into something that's more easily accessible. And then is where CryptoStats comes in, which is you've got all this data in different places. You've got different subgraphs, you've got different websites, API endpoints, things like that. It's in different formats. You need to kind of take that data, do a bit of aggregation, not like batch aggregation, not combing through like tens of thousands of transactions, but do some aggregation and give like a normalized result so that you have, you can take any query for any project that's supported and get like a output that looks the same for any project. So that's where CryptoStats fits in. And then what we try to do with this is make it available to anyone at the presentation layer. Like the last layer before data gets to the consumer is someone making an awesome website, some awesome data visualization, some really cool app, something that presents this data to the user and tries to figure out the best way to communicate it. And so our goal is to make all this data open and free and hopefully have lots of competition of people about who can present this data the best way they can. And so I'll dive a little bit more into the technical side of how we try to do this. What CryptoStats is right now, it's quite simple. every protocol on crypto fees is in these data collections we have, and each one is represented by an adapter. So this is like some sample code for the Tornado Cache adapter, and so adapter is just a piece of JavaScript. You can see this one here is doing a query to the graph protocol. We kind of define a GraphQL query. We query this Tornado Cache subgraph, give it some dates, some block numbers, whatever. We end up kind of subtracting the days from the fees from one day against the fees from the other day. And then that's like the fees for Tornado Cache for that day. So I think like pretty simple piece of code. We've also got a bunch of metadata at the bottom. So the goal is to have a bunch of these adapters. They're all stored on IPFS, kind of indexed on chain, and that way, like anybody can kind of pull what are basically instructions on how to get the best data. And I think of it kind of like Wikipedia. If somebody sees a better data source or a better way to calculate data, they can come in and update that. And then here's the internal process of how a website would use CryptoStats data is that, as I said, there's kind of like an on-chain registry of these adapters for each collection. So you kind of query those adapters, or query the list of adapters, which are just a bunch of IPFS identifiers, get the adapters from IPFS. Those adapters kind of execute the code to like reach out to the graph or wherever the data source is, and then you kind of bring that data back to your website, and you can display it however you'd like. But we have like a JavaScript SDK that does all that for you. So here's like 10 lines of JavaScript for how you could get like the crypto fees data, like the fees on a certain day with, again, I think like a super simple amount of code. Yeah, here's like kind of one of these collections. So it's a bunch of, bunch of protocols, bunch of data. And as I mentioned, like, we want anybody to be able to contribute to this data. As I was saying before, I don't want to be the one going in building every adapter for everything. That makes me like the central point of failure. So if anybody can come in, they can read the code, they can understand how data is generated, and if they want to edit it, if they see an improvement that they can be made, we've got this like really cool editor. It's like an IDE, but it's right in your browser. So you can go in there, update the adapter, and test it out, and kind of publish it back to the community so that the community can update it if they need to. So that's kind of where the project's at now. But the goal is to not just like provide these adapters, but to provide any tooling or infrastructure that's helpful to making data open and available for everybody. So these are kind of some other, we're working on some things with the graph protocol to make it easier to build subgraphs. We want to support like more than just the graph protocol, like any indexer that exists. We want to kind of support people who are building websites, building data sites, making it so that they have the tools, resources, and support needed to like build really cool websites. And eventually, like, the goal is to kind of turn this into a DAO, to really kind of give the governing control over like where which adapters get chosen and how to funds get distributed to data projects into a DAO itself. So if you thought any of this was interesting, if you kind of are interested in our vision of like a world where all the crypto data is open and free to everybody, and everybody is contributing to it, would love for you to join us. We've got Discord, all the usual kind of community stuff. We're looking for technical people to help build this out, and of course non-technical people as well to help build this community. And if you're hacking this weekend and you're building something data related, whether it's a site that generates data, uses data, presents data, then would love to have you building on our stuff. So yeah, if you're interested in that, reach out to me. Come find me around here, or you can reach out on our Discord or something like that. So yeah, thank you guys so much. I guess we'll open it up to questions.
Okay, there's a mic for questions from the audience. Does anyone have any questions? Raise your hand and stand up and we'll get a microphone to you. Okay, we've got a question in the front row.
What is your DAO strategy? What are you already doing to implement that? Can you unfold a little bit there?
In terms of
Governance system, what you're doing, how it's happening.
And that part is still like not super planned out. You know, we have a channel in our Discord where we've discussed like the different DAO tooling and stuff like that. You know, I definitely want to make sure that I think kind of like structuring DAOs is an area that there's been like not as much kind of innovation as I've hoped. So I'm excited about stuff like element finance and optimism, like some of these projects that are trying structures that are more than just, oh, we're going to do coin voting. You know, things that do kind of delegate power to different groups, to individuals if necessary. We've talked about stuff like optimistic governance, kind of the idea that you know, because again, most people are going to behave correctly the first time. You can kind of delegate people power and have some recourse in the event that they behave poorly. You know, obviously this is similar to like how optimistic rollups work, but again, element finance is one project that's trying to apply that to governance. So we've got some cool ideas, but again, it's still kind of an open discussion for the community to figure out.
Okay, we've got a question in the middle.
Hi, so is your data source currently mostly depending on the graph? Does that mean if the graph protocol doesn't support, that's a kind of constraints of what you cannot correct?
So I'd say most, you know, the goal for kind of having, you know, open trustless data is to pull from the most open trustless data sources. And I think right now, like usually that's the graph, you know, the graph is like most subgraphs are kind of open. Anybody can, you know, kind of run their own subgraph. If I want to run like the Uniswap subgraph on my server, I can do that. I can change it. I can view the code. You know, they're moving to this decentralized protocol where it's not even just the graph that's running the servers. So, but you know, we don't want to be constrained by the graph, as you said. So, you know, there's a lot of data. For example, like data from the Cosmos ecosystem. I know the graph is adding support, but like, you know, generally like we can't get data from the graph for the Cosmos ecosystem. So we can pull from any, you know, endpoint, any HTTP endpoint. So if it's centralized, decentralized, like we can pull from wherever, but kind of the goal is to find the most trustful, but also trustless sources of data to pull from. Thank you.
Okay, we've got another question.
Hi, just one question. So if I understood you correctly, your adapters currently are only geared towards crypto fees, right? Mm-hmm. So if I have a subgraph, which is for my application, which has nothing to do with DeFi, which is some real world application, and I want to pull data, can I use your adapters or do I have to write my own adapter for that?
So if you want to pull data that's like unrelated to like crypto?
DeFi.
To DeFi stuff. So you can build, I mean, anybody can build any adapter. Like you saw, we have this editor. You can build an adapter. Like if you think it's a useful tool, you can build it and you can publish to IPFS and you can kind of import it and into your site. So there's adapters which anybody can create, and then there's like this adapter registry, which is kind of our curated list of adapters that like we as a community think are, you know, trusted and accurate. So there's no reason you have to use our adapters. You can make your own adapters and load them in. But if you want to, you know, what we're hoping to do is encourage people to, you know, kind of submit adapters to our collection, and we'll kind of include them.
Is there a general skeleton that I can just adapt for different subgraphs? Or I have to build the adapter from scratch?
You have to build it from scratch, but again, it's like, you know, I showed some of the code. Like the code is like a simple adapter is like 50 lines of, you know, TypeScript. So, and you can look at all the existing ones and kind of figure out from there. If you're just querying a graph, you know, like the graph, then it's a pretty simple adapter to do that. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay, any more questions from the audience? Okay, then I have a question, if I may.
Go ahead.
You touched, I know we're jumping around a little bit here, but you touched a little bit on kind of moving on from coin voting. Mm-hmm. I know it's a tough question, but like, where do we move on to from coin voting? Mm-hmm. What do you have, like, can you share some thoughts on that?
It's a good question, and I certainly don't have the answer, but, you know, in crypto, we certainly like to like really reinvent things from a base level. So I think the end game of how like on-chain governance, and not just governance, but on-chain communities look is probably similar to the way organizations work in the real world, right? Like corporations have coin voting. You have shareholders that can vote on things, but right. Typically one thing they do is they vote for the board kind of selects executives right. Hire people, like you have kind of this whole organization tree. And so if I had to guess, I'd say that's probably kind of the end state for kind of digital organizations as well.
Okay, so like replicating existing traditional organizations, but just on-chain governance.
Yeah, but with more transparency, more control. Like of course, like it's really hard to do shareholder voting. It can happen like once a quarter. Things are not very transparent. So we can certainly use the new tools we have available to try to be more efficient and to maybe do some things that wouldn't be possible. Right. Like liquidity mining is, that's not related to governance, but that's something you can't do with stock shares, but you can do with crypto. But in terms of organizing people, I think, crypto doesn't really change, the need for people to have some level of organization. So.
Right. Cool. Okay. Thank you very much, David.
Thank you, guys.
Okay.